Welcome to the Developer Spotlight on the Full Dive Gaming Podcast. In the Developer Spotlight, we sit down with VR industry professionals. This week, we're sitting down with Chris Brickler, CEO and co-founder of MyndVR. That's Mind, spelled with a Y. Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, Jay. It's a pleasure to come on.
We're really happy to have you here. While we're saying thank you to you, we got to thank our sponsor of the podcast real quick, Asterion Products. If you don't know them yet, they make the Asterion Aura VR headset stand. It's really nice. They also make a mat for VR, keeps you in your play space, keeps you from getting out, punching your kids, punching the wall. It's called the Origins, and they've told us it's coming back in stock, so you may want to go on, use code FULLDIVE10 to get 10% off that. Well, we're excited to have you here because, Chris, your company is something I haven't really heard about before. It's an entertainment and therapeutic program for seniors. Can you kind of tell us, for someone who's never heard of you, what it is that Mynd is trying to do?
Well, thanks, Jay. Yeah, what we're trying to do at MyndVR is really simple. We're trying to improve the lives of our elders by using virtual reality. So we've sort of reimagined this whole idea of youth culture and gaming and the phenomenon of whatever the metaverse is. Idea, the concept, but all those tools are extremely, extremely powerful when you transition the infrastructure that supports the content development in VR over to a healthcare digital therapeutic that actually can improve people's lives. So it's really exciting times for us.
Ooh, that is really awesome. And it's really interesting to hear about that because it's just not something you hear of enough in VR or in tech. A lot of times the older generations just get left out or completely missed.
That's right.
How long have you guys been doing this now?
So we started this in 2016. I was in Silicon Valley working on a number of projects. One of them happened to be kind of the precursor to Horizon's world with an Oculus project there. And I saw the power of what the medium was going to offer our society. And I've always been kind of gravitating towards meaningful, socially responsible businesses myself. And when I saw the power of what 2016 Oculus could do, I came up with all these different ideas. And my co-founder was in Texas managing about 100 skilled nursing facilities. And we had been friends for years and years, but we hadn't really caught up on what we were doing in our careers. And we got together one night over a couple of beers and came up with this wacky idea about, well, why wouldn't we use music and therapy, which was being used in these skilled nursing communities with a iPod, a customized playlist playing a Frank Sinatra song for an 85-year-old with dementia or Alzheimer's or some other sort of cognitive impairment. Music has a way of hitting our neural pathways in a way that's really science-based, it's evidence-based, and it's just a really beautiful thing when it brings the mind alive again. So we thought about, well, what if we could do this with VR, make it an entirely more order of magnitude more powerful by immersing that senior, not only hearing that Frank Sinatra song, but being in a live concert with a crooner, with a live band, with all around, you see people that are dressed in 1950s garb. And that's exactly what we did in our first prototype. We created this speakeasy club of 1950s style with a crooner playing amazing Frank Sinatra songs. We did that production with the theory that, hey, if we took this out and put this on folks that have dementia or some sort of cognitive issue, played them memorable music and then took them on a night out, what that would do for the brain. And it has just been an amazing journey since 2016, since that idea came up.
Wow.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love this concept. This is so cool. I love using, these tools that we have to support people. It's awesome. And so you talked about how this started in Dallas, Texas. How far is your reach now after a few years in this?
Yeah, so the growth has been exceptional, actually. We're operating in 45 or 6 states now, Canada, Australia. Wow. We've got a number of things happening in Europe as well. It's just a great global community coming together that we're sort of driving an ecosystem around the health aspects of virtual reality and cognitive and also physical therapy and things along those lines, which we can certainly talk about. But, it's expanded not just geographically, but I think our company has expanded and evolved from in the early days of bringing immersive content to seniors like that concert, taking them to concerts, museum tours, letting them have a guided tour in Paris. They might have gone to Paris. That could bring up a lot of wonderful memories, and all the other things from skydiving. I never thought I would see so many 85-year-old women actually want to jump out of airplanes and go skydiving. They never got a chance to do that. So that's like a recreational kind of activity that we love to give our seniors. And we built one of the largest libraries of content, what we characterize as senior-friendly content, which is all curated with love, care, and compassion for this population. With the expansion beyond that comes all these interactive tools that we're mapping into real therapy. So when we think about seniors recovering from a stroke or from other types of health conditions that make them less mobile or cognitively challenged, we feel that this digital therapeutic sort of embryonic industry that we're starting here is just going to be so helpful as we go to this older population. Because listen, the problem with our younger generation is that we're going to be looking up at the biggest population of older adults that has ever been in human history, right? So we've never seen, in 2034, for instance, we're going to have more people in this country that are 65 or older than we will have people that are 18 or under. Never has that happened before, ever. So what's that going to do? It's going to create a tremendous strain on our healthcare resources. So we have to make sure that we can deliver virtual therapeutics. And MyndVR is clearly positioned as the sort of brand, the channel, the network, and also the content producer of these really specific digital therapeutics that are on pathways really fast into the world of reimbursement from insurance, from Medicare, Medicaid, that so many seniors are cared for. So we're really excited about the tailwind of from a macro point of view, some of the regulatory aspects that are pushing immersive technology into healthcare a lot faster than we've ever imagined. With a bill that's been introduced, a bipartisan bill that's actually been introduced this year in March by a Republican senator from West Virginia, a Democrat from New Hampshire, co-authored one of the best bills that I've seen in a long time, called the Access to Prescriptive Digital Therapeutics Act of 2022. Wow. And why this is so important is because this is intended to usher virtual therapeutics like MyndVR faster through FDA, faster through CMS, and as the economy has to brace for this shift in older adults and the care, we also have to bring more affordable, more effective tools in to help with this aging process. And we believe that VR is going to be enormously productive in this world of digital therapeutics.
Wow, that is really impressive. I didn't realize your reach was so huge. I saw on your page that the way this experience kind of works is there's a branded headset and a tablet that kind of work together when someone's, taking someone in to show them these experiences. But it looks like you're also headed for other headsets, the HTC Vive Flow and such. So what is the experience like? Like, let's say someone's, in their home and they want to check this out. Does someone bring in a headset and put it on them? What is the experience like for the person the first time?
Yeah, so typically how we reach seniors today is through senior living communities and long-term care, rehab communities, hospice care, veteran homes. Most of the time in those environments, our healthcare product, which is centered around the HTC Vive Flow, this is the lightest weight immersive glasses that have ever been produced.
Wow.
And very much produced with this population in mind, because it doesn't have a head strap and it's lightweight. It allows for seniors that are not used to playing video games to come into this space in a very gentle, calm way. So we're super excited about that. So yeah, I think we're just excited about launching this new application into the homes of senior care providers, because you've got those nurses, those frontline caregivers that can be trained on how the tablet works with the headset. And that's a really important function in how we are bringing VR in general into this population, is that a lot of the folks that absorb this MyndVR initiative are needing of some sort of care. So we train the caregivers on how to administer this. We have a tablet function that will allow for, let's say that caregiver has a conversation with the senior with the immersive glasses on. They can type in an address that might be where they got married or where they went to high school or maybe an old house. We look at that on the screen. The caregiver says, That's the street level view we want to tap into Google on. So we tap into that and we transmit that immediately over to the headset of the senior. That technology sounds kind of flashy, but really what the exciting part of that is that we're combating social isolation.
Yeah.
And this pandemic has been no friend to this population. So when we think about VR into this population, we have to think about different age-related conditions and different things that are happening in their lives. And this isolation is a big issue. And seniors start to not socialize as much. This tool brings it ignites so much conversation between senior and caregiver. It's just a beautiful thing when we see that happen. So that's just one kind of example of how that tablet and headset work. There's countless other examples that we're building in the therapy area that really stretch across occupational therapies, physical therapies, speech therapy, all these different avenues that are so important to the therapeutic goals of these seniors to get them back on their feet or to slow down cognitive decline. We're not making any claims that VR can do that, but we are doing all the research in the world that we can find to prove that our theory is correct. And we do believe that this is the very early stage of VR as a therapeutic, but we do believe it's going to have tremendous benefits to this population. But it's got to be done right, and it has to be done in a very ethical way with this group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I would really like to hear more about, you mentioned the experiences and helping with that social isolation. And we saw in your trailer also that MyndVR helps bridge the communication gap between elders and youth through these experiences. There's something to talk about if you're doing this experience together. Can you tell us more about how youth and family members can join in on these VR adventures with the elders that are using MyndVR?
Yeah. Well, intergenerational communication is really important to the health of our seniors. And I just can't reiterate that enough to your listeners, Jay, how important that is. So what we've seen is that the younger audience, let's say, 20, 25, 30-year-old type folks that are into virtual reality probably haven't thought about, wow, this could be adapted for my grandpa who might be lonely in Kansas. Well, guess what? With MyndVR now, we've created a safe multiverse for our seniors, and we've now allowed connectivity for that grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, someone younger in the family now can use a smartphone, a tablet, and connect into grandpa's multiverse in Kansas and drive the experiences with grandpa. So if we can imagine, say, hey, would you like to go to the Grand Canyon today? Granddaughter's in New York, grandpa's in Kansas, and together they can go on a trip and have something to talk about, not just about grandpa's sore knee or the bad food in the community, or grandma's case, the bad salon day that she just had. Now there's something more to talk about. We have life and world to connect with. We have nature to connect with, animals, zoos, museums, car racing, sports. I mean, you name it. These seniors want it in this format. So it's a beautiful time to really connect that younger generation that are VR enthusiasts with older adults.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really something when you can have the common ground of, hey, we're looking at the Grand Canyon together. We can talk about the Grand Canyon, where it can create a lot of apprehension. I know when people don't want to go visit someone because it's like, we have nothing to talk about. We have nothing in common. Now they're doing something. I think that's really, really exciting. I've demoed VR for hundreds of people now too. And something that's always been really interesting for me is if you demo VR to really young kids, they think it's cool and they have a good time, but they've grown up with this all kinds of amazing technology. When I've showed it to my grandma or to other people of an older generation, their minds are blown when they see what this can happen. You take them to their childhood home and, people start crying. People have these big emotional reactions. What are people seeing? Like, how are people lighting up? How are they changing their demeanor and their feelings when they first demo this to them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jay. It's such a beautiful thing to bring this technology to this older population. The way I kind of look at it is this population, let's say 75 plus, and we put our immersive glasses on 100-year-olds and plus. But this generation, often called the greatest generation, It has really seen a lot of different technologies in the last 80 years. I mean, this generation went from black and white to color TV, from AM to FM radio. They saw the rise of the PC, they saw the internet, they saw smartphones, and they adopted all of those.
Mhm.
What's the one thing they did not adopt that has been so big in our culture are video games. They're just not Atari. That technology went right past them. So we have a big challenge to use this technology in a way that is very comfortable for those older folks. So Jay, I don't know if that completely answers your question, but when they do get into virtual reality, we don't always know what their interest or what their life and their history is about, right? So then we try different things, and if we take someone that might have, for instance, I went to a home in New Jersey just right before the pandemic, met with the team there, and also a couple that was in the home, been married for 50 years. She had Alzheimer's at a very sort of medium to late stage. He was perfectly healthy from a cognitive point of view. We sat him down, let them both. I said, "Where's a place that you guys have gone to as a holiday sort of destination or whatever?" And they said Paris is where they had their honeymoon, and they've gone back 4 or 5 times. So it's a very special place for them. I said, "Well, great." So I had the glasses, and I shared this with him, and he got a chance to see it first. I calmly gave it to her, let her touch and feel it a little bit. She didn't remember what she had for breakfast. Didn't remember what his name was. It certainly didn't know me. And here I am holding a VR headset. Hey, try this on, right? You can't just force it onto people, but you can subtly give it to them, let them touch it, feel it, and then get comfortable with it. Put it on and say, "Listen, hey, we're going to go to Paris. Is that okay?" "Yeah, okay, great." So we do it, and within literally within 10 seconds, she's in front of the Eiffel Tower. She says, "Honey, there's the Eiffel Tower." We went to the Louvre, a couple other places, and she started remembering these trips that they had within 30 seconds of putting this on their head.
Wow.
So it's like those types of experiences when we're out in the field working with our seniors are so beautiful. Personally, it's why we get up in the morning. It's so motivating to bring this technology to them. But it's like when you see those reactions and you see those neuro pathways connecting and those memories that were dormant in the brain, in the mind, become alive again. I mean, that's so special.
It's beautiful.
That is amazing to hear about. And I definitely get a little emotional hearing about that. That's so awesome to be able to have this tool to support people and help them, access these memories that maybe were hidden away from them. And I would really be interested to hear more about, you mentioned a little bit about some research, some emerging research that's going on. You have lots of doctors on your science and research team that we've seen. Have you had any results from research so far that you can share with us?
So again, we're entering kind of a new phase of VR in healthcare. But that's not to say that there hasn't been an amazing amount of research already done. There's been thousands of studies using immersive technology and its use cases across different places in healthcare, across the spectrum of care. And we tap into a lot of that. So studies around making people feel more calm, reduction in pain. A lot of that kind of stuff has been done. It's in the general public. But what we're doing is building on that to a specific audience relative to the aging population and looking at different age-related conditions across that spectrum. And that's what it's such a great time to be pioneering this space with MyndVR, because it's really uncharted. But we do know certain areas that we've seen effects, large-scale operational studies that we've done both with commercial customers and with university partners. We've got one of the largest studies ever done relative to VR and the aging population with Stanford right now going on with Jeremy Bailenson. Dr. Bailenson and his team are looking at hundreds and hundreds of seniors across the country on the MyndVR network to see how they improve, their disposition improves, possibly some behavioral observations that can come from this calming content. Also, the impact on the caregiver and senior relationship with this technology, and how this technology can be somewhat of a breakthrough from an adoption point of view of other technologies that will come along down the road that VR can be built upon on VR. So it's a really exciting study that we've embarked on Stanford. They're going to be wrapping that up this summer and publishing, I think, later this fall. So that's a really great set of super pros that have looked at VR in so many different avenues, and so we're excited to work with them. And then we're also embarking on several clinical trials that will be specific to these age-related conditions.
I definitely want to check out that research. That is so interesting, and I love the brain and learning about the brain, and so I'm definitely going to check that research out. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that you brought up Stanford, because I actually saw that you're collaborating with them. And Stanford and VR kind of have an interesting relationship because they've done a lot of research, but one study that they did is kind of what a lot of people try to use against VR in children. Even though Stanford never said there was any dangers, they did say that they observed that younger kids didn't necessarily seem to have the ability to decipher whether something happened in VR or it happened in real life. When they took them and showed them these whales, they thought it really happened. And sometimes people use that to kind of say, oh, well, VR is unsafe, VR is bad. What have you seen working with Stanford and their overall feelings towards the world of virtual reality?
Well, I can't really speak on behalf of Stanford, but one of our advisors, senior scientific advisors on our team, is Dr. Walter Greenleaf. I've been a fan of his work for a number of years, and our paths have intersected on MyndVR. He has been studying VR as it relates to the human body and psychology aspects of VR since 1984 at Stanford. Not a lot of people realize that research has been happening with this immersive technology for that long, but he's kind of the godfather of that, and he's a resident at Stanford, and just a pleasure to work with on really innovating, again, pioneering VR into healthcare. He did speak at the recent International Virtual Reality Healthcare Association conference in Nashville. First time we got back together, our group got back together since COVID. And he got up and spoke, and he says, I tried to find one avenue in healthcare where VR was not having an impact. And he looked like a month before this presentation he was giving in March of this year, and said he couldn't find anything. He said it was just, the use cases were ubiquitous, from everything from pain management with urology, to getting into exposure therapy when it relates to veterans and PTS. A lot of this content is going to be very useful in the future, but I want to tap into one other idea that, Jay, that you kind of ignited with me, and that is really this conversation around ethics and the content. And what I mean by that is the ability to make these virtual worlds is going to become increasingly more realistic. And what we have to do is have the highest standards of integrity and ethics to bring content, especially to this older audience that are seeing VR for the first time, making sure that they are in measurable doses of MyndVR. So we generally recommend 15, 20 minutes because it's such a powerful medium. We're going to do more research on that in terms of length of time. But with kids, to your question earlier, there has been some disclaimers with different manufacturers for children under 13. I have 2 kids under 13. We do look at VR on a very measured basis, a few minutes here and there. But until all the research is in on the developing eye and how that works with the brain, and the more realistic that VR is becoming, there's a lot of work to do on the ethics side of things.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. And so talking about this research also makes me think of all the media exposure that MyndVR has had, from CNN to the New York Times, other news outlets. How has all this media exposure affected your overall reputation?
Well, it's interesting. We've had a lot of wonderful coverage in the media, from Fox News to CNN, Wall Street, the New York Times, Washington Post did a wonderful piece on one of our communities in the Virginia area, and then hundreds and hundreds of local outlets. So when MyndVR arrives in a smaller market like Peoria, Illinois, for instance, a lot of times a television crew will come out and actually film this installation of MyndVR into these homes, and it becomes such a beautiful story, feel-good story for the local media and local news as well. So we do a lot of that. I would say that the media attention is really, really good for our industry, because what we're trying to do is communicate that VR is not just for gamers anymore. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of the people that have made VR to what it is could obviously put their skill sets into using MyndVR or a VR technology for health conditions. And I think you will see a lot of game developers moving into areas that support healthcare. But we've had to create a narrative on a national level that really supports our findings and all of the implementations that we've done. around the world with MyndVR and the impact it's having. So that media coverage has been good to show that. Right when the pandemic hit in March 2020, we pretty much shut down as everyone did. The senior population was hit extremely hard, as most people know, but senior communities who we were providing our service to pretty much shut the doors and said, we have to protect our people here. So what we did is we organized a giveaway and did a national promotion right at the onset of COVID to gift 50 MyndVR kits to 50 different senior communities in 50 different states. And that was a promotion that we put out there and had just had hundreds and hundreds of communities come in. Fox News covered that, for instance, as a good story that people could get behind during that time when people were talking to their grandparents through windows at these communities. It was a really tough time for the families and for everyone else. And that's really that story of social isolation. I think the media has done a good job covering that. I think the great thing, if anything, that's come out of the pandemic is that the younger culture and generation now know what isolation means. And now they know what senior isolation means. Which has always been there. It was there a lot higher during the pandemic, but it still will always be there. So I think there's a more empathy that's growing with our younger culture. And my job is to galvanize the VR industry and help bring talent in to start making and creating things that are useful and meaningful in people's lives. And that's the vehicle that we've tried to create with MyndVR. And I think the media has done a pretty good job of covering that angle.
I am so impressed and so excited to hear about this because I've always thought that the amount of impact virtual reality is going to have on the world is much, much bigger than just video gaming. And not everyone sees that. I see that you clearly have that vision. And hopefully some of our listeners out there who hear that feel the same way. So I wanted to ask you, if someone out there hears that and they want to bring this to a community near them, what does that look like and how do they get a hold of you to do that?
So that's pretty easy. Folks can come to myndvr.com, Mind with a Y, MyndVR. And we dropped the I to a Y on purpose, by the way. We wanted to build an attribute in the brand around ownership of our minds. And if there's one thing that older folks feel as they get older is that they start to lose some of the identity. They start to lose some of the memories of their past, which erodes some of that identity problem. And if we can kind of get people to understand that the power of virtual reality to give somebody's ownership back into some of their activities they do during the day. Maybe they get up and say, I actually want to go to a farm today. Well, there's no way they could actually get to a farm unless they have MyndVR, and we'll take them straight to a farm. We'll show them goat milking in VR, which I don't think anybody's ever produced a VR app that has goat milking in it, or goat yoga. We've done that too. So there's a lot of fun ways. So I'm sorry getting a little off track there, but the way people can get this is at our website. We do have a community product that is for multiple users that the device can be shared in a community. And we also have a way for families to bring MyndVR to their home as well. And that's just a single family license that we have there.
Great.
That is so cool. I want to say again, thank you for coming on. We're going to make sure, of course, there's links in the description, the show notes for all of you out there who are interested in Mynd and want to learn more about it. But Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Jay, and for all the great work you're doing as well. This is really special time.
I appreciate it so much. Well, hey, if you're out there and you're listening, remember, if you want to stop by and see, you can actually see there was a pair of Vive Flow glasses that Chris picked up earlier on the YouTube. If you want to see what those look like, see them a little more in person. And of course, if you're watching us, but you want to take more Full Dive with you anywhere you go, we're on every podcast platform where you can rate and review us. And if you're thinking about VR, you've been listening to the podcast, but you still haven't done it, it's time to just finally dive on in.
Dive on in.